As Omaha resident Brian Windhorst once said, "What it do, baby?" Joel asked me last week to change the intro, and I didn't intentionally because I want to talk this out.
I'm just wondering why this is what we start the pod with.
This is what I came up with. I should mention this is the Half Court Press podcast.
Yeah.
We are Joel Lorenzi, the great beat writer at the Omaha World-Herald.
Yes, sir.
I am Jimmy Watkins, the Nebraska basketball beat writer at the Omaha World-Herald. A little football too, but for the purposes of this podcast, football kickoff weekend, not thinking about it. We're 10 weeks from hoops. That's where we're at right now.
Yep.
Joel, what do you want?
70-something days, according to John.
What do you want me to say instead? Come up with a better idea. Let's workshop this in front of God.
That's probably not in my jurisdiction, frankly.
No?
I don't.
I think it's kind of something to stick with.
I
think if I just say hello, welcome to the podcast.
I think you got some type of right as the host, more or less. But I don't know. I feel like we could.
It's a collaborative effort. You can say whatever you want.
We should have took this to the whiteboard first before we got to.
We still can. There's only the third episode.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Well, we should have took it to the whiteboard before this episode.
Okay.
Because it definitely came up after the last.
We'll circle back.
Okay.
We'll circle back on it. But that's what it is for right now. Today we are talking about roster transactions and off-season moves, and God, there's so many of them. So I did this for a story.
Keep up with now.
I did this for a story this week, and I didn't do a ton with it. I just, who's out, who's in, new guys, transfers, freshmen, who's coming back from the Big Ten teams from last year. And I don't think I wrote more than 200 words about any of the teams. It came out at 3,200 words. Jeez. Most of those words are probably names and numbers and stuff, so that's being a little bit padded there, but it's just so much. There's so much movement in college basketball. It's hard to keep track of, and that's why I think this is a useful exercise, because I would not have, you just forget stuff. The transfer portal news is happening all the time. The commit news is happening all the time. It's a lot to keep up with, even with the one team that you're covering. So that's why I think this is going to be useful. We'll try and get an idea 10 weeks out of where we think some of these teams are at. And I don't expect to make any bold predictions on this podcast, but any opinions I do give, I expect to be able to reprise in about 8 weeks when I start to dive in a little bit deeper to this stuff. But this is going to be our surface level dive. We're going to start with the Big Ten, and we are going to start with, I'm just going in order of last year's standings. So Wisconsin/Illinois, they are the co-champs of the Big Ten during the regular season last year. Wisconsin was 25-8. Overall, 15-5 in conference. I believe they lost in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Players who have left this program include Johnny Davis, who was he, the 7th pick? 9th pick of the Wizards?
In the 7 to 10
lottery
range,
pick,
yeah.
the Wizards.
I think
Brad Davison, who was in school probably a little bit too long. I think he was there for 5 or 6 years. And he was a good basketball player.
Good player,
yeah. Chris Vogt, the tall backup big man. Lauren Bowman transferred. Ben Carlson is at Utah. Matthew Moores is at South Dakota. The new guys, not too many of them. Max Klesmet, a transfer from Woolford, averaged about 15 points a game last year. Kamari McGee had a nice freshman year at Wisconsin Green Bay. I think that's an interesting pull to grab a kid as a freshman out of the transfer portal from a mid-major. At the mid-major level, you can kind of cheat that. Maybe that's a guy who, if he's at Wisconsin Green Bay, that's a guy who slipped through your recruiting eye initially, and you can get him in the program and give him the resources that a high major Division I program can give that the Wisconsin Green Bay frankly probably couldn't. And a 3-star guard named Connor Esgin, true freshman. I'm skeptical of all true freshmen making significant impacts in college basketball.
Wow.
Him especially because they got 10 dudes back or 9 dudes back. So
yeah.
9 dudes back include Jacoby Neath, Jordan Davis, Johnny's brother, Tyler Wall, Stephen Crowell, Carter Gilmore, Chucky Hepburn, Omaha native Chucky Hepburn, who I wrote a story on last year, cool family, Marcus Ilver, Chris Hodges, and Isaac Lindsey. Joel, what say you about Wisconsin's offseason?
I like teams to return most of their core. Obviously, it's good to at least you to then feel good about them. But, I mean, you look at the guys that they lost, and it's like, damn, that's your scoring right there. I mean, we were talking about Johnny Davis as a top 5 player in college basketball last year.
10 player of the year.
And Brad Davison was no joke, bro. I mean, I remember watching him. I mean, a lot of those a lot of those key moments they had, I mean, he's hitting the shot. Like, if you're against, like, if you're a fan playing against Wisconsin, like,
Nebraska fans booed the crap out of him every time he got the ball.
Brad Davison is like the ideal player to hate if you're an opposing fan. And so that's a lot to lose. So it'll be interesting how they bounce back in terms of scoring and whatnot. But I mean, they return a lot of their core, so I'm kind of iffy on them. I still think they're obviously a top half Big Ten team, but I doubt that they'll finish as high as they did with Johnny Davis and Brad Davison in the fold.
It's funny because last year I think they were picked like 10th in the preseason poll. Just no one saw the jump coming from Johnny Davis.
Oh yeah. I'm
looking for a guy to make a similar jump. You could look at a guy like Tyler Wall, averaged like 11 points a game last year.
Yeah.
Chucky Hepburn hit the big. I mean, he banked the 3 in against Purdue. But he still hit the big shot. You know, he's a freshman who was trusted with point guard duties, played big minutes. People around here know what kind of stones that kid has. I don't know if anyone's making a Johnny Davis-sized leap, but I do know that Greg Gard's teams are going to play defense. They are going to not turn the ball over. If people, to maximize your podcast listening experience, if you want to pull up this story that I wrote about the Big Ten roster overhauls, some of this information is there in front of you. If you don't want to do that, I'll just read it to you. The last 4 seasons, Wisconsin has ranked top 35 in defensive efficiency every year and top 13 in turnover percentage the last 4 seasons. Now, a lot of the turnover stuff probably has a lot to do with Davison, who was there for all that entire time. And losing a guy like that, it's impossible to replace the institutional knowledge and leadership that a sixth-year guy can bring, or a super senior can bring. So, yeah, I'm kind of with Joel. Probably still a top half of the league team just because of the returning experience and the culture that they've got. Probably a tournament team. But I could see them taking a step back. We are moving on. We got to do this quick because there are so many of these teams, and I don't want this to be a marathon podcast.
Yeah.
Illinois, 23-10, 15-5 last year, 15-5 in the Big Ten, I should say. Gonzo Ball, Kofi Coburn, draft. Jacob Grandison transferred to Kentucky.
Yeah.
Trent Frazier, grad. Alfonso Plummer, the transfer grad. Andre Curbelo, who they kind of were grooming to be the guy who took over the show at a certain point. Man. Gone. St. John's. We'll talk about him later.
I really liked the team they had last year, but keep going.
Me too. This team was fun to watch. The game they played, was it on? It was early in the year. I want to say it was on like President's Day or Martin Luther King Day. It was on a Monday. They played a double overtime game against Purdue, and it was awesome. And it was by far Curbelo's best game of the year. And I don't know. There was clearly a lot of cooks in the kitchen there that he wasn't able to do what he needed to do to feel comfortable with the ball in his hands, but we haven't even read all the names yet. Omar Payne was a backup big for them last year. He's transferred to Jacksonville. Brandon Podziemski is transferred to Santa Clara. Benjamin Bosmans Verdonk, fun name to say, transferred to South Carolina. DeMonte Williams, a dude who was there for a long time, graduated.
I think he was in my class in high school. I'm not calling myself old, but he's old.
That tells you something. Transfer Terrence Shannon Jr. from Texas Tech, classic 3-and-D wing guy. Got some pop to him, can jump a little bit.
No doubt.
Awesome in transition. Matthew Mayer from Baylor. Matthew Mayer from Baylor. If you've watched college basketball, you know that guy.
Of course.
He's a kind of a stretchy-ish big. Not afraid to mix it up. Sky Clark, they're putting a lot on his shoulders. Number 29 player in the 2022 class. 4-star point guard, 4-star guard Jaden Epps, top 70 player in the class. Ty Rogers, top 50 guy. Sort of one of those guys who can just fill in the gaps for you. Does a lot of things well.
Illinois product.
Sincere Harris, 4-star guy, and then Zachary Perrin. Probably not how you pronounce that name because he's from France, but I can only do so much here. Back, Austin Hutcherson, Coleman Hawkins, R.J. Melendez, Luke Good, Dane Dania, who was a mid-year transfer from Baylor, and Brandon Lieb, the big man. Let's do it again, Joel. Illinois.
Yeah.
A lot going on here.
No doubt. I like Illinois. Never feels like they can really get over the hump, and I don't know that this is the team that will do it, especially since you lose a centerpiece like Kofi. But I will say, out of the teams that got their returns, I like Illinois' return a lot. Terrence Shannon, this is a guy we've been talking about. It feels like he's supposed to be a late first rounder every year, early second rounder, and then it ends up not necessarily going maybe the way he wants, and then we're talking about him transferring to Illinois. Still a good player, still a good 3-and-D wing that you could almost plug anywhere. And I think I like him here especially. Matt Meyer. This is the guy you could have put on any team in college, and he would have been
I feel that way about TSJ too.
Yeah, and Matt Meyer. I really wish. I think Matt Meyer. I think UNC was in his final list, and I was really, as a basketball fan, crossing my fingers. Not like UNC needs the talent after last year, but as a basketball fan, I just thought the fit was so perfect, and it ended up working out because they got Pete Nance. But I mean, he's just such a pluggable player. Really, really hard-nosed, just do what you need type player. I love his game. Sky Clark, this is a dude, I mean, he's been in the talks of recruiting ranks for years now. I remember watching him. He was like 14, 15. This is a guy that back then it was really a discussion of who the best point guard was in his class between him and Dior Johnson. Now that's not really the discussion, but he's fairly up there. And I think I always like Sky in that discussion because he was always he just had such a skillful game. The pull-up was there, and he's just such a poised guard. And I think a couple years in that program, and we're going to be talking next level for him for sure. And
a lot on his plate. I'm assuming they're going to hand him the keys. I don't see anyone else taking over the point guard duties in that program.
Yeah.
Guys to watch other than who you just talked about. Again, the transfers that they added, both seamless fits. It's sort of I would assume it's going to be a philosophical shift. This is a team that played a little bit slower for 2 of the last 3 years around Kofi, dumping him the ball and spacing the floor around him. Worked really well, but they don't really have that guy. Like Coleman Hawkins is a dude that I think they expect to take a big jump this year. Not as necessarily a dude that I'm going to toss the ball to 10, 15 times a game and say, okay, just post up and get something. So it'll be a little bit of a different look. I think they're going to run more. I think they'll be more fun to watch. Kofi it's impressive to watch him, to see him in person. He's so large, see how coordinated he is in person.
Yeah.
But I think it's more, I like the up-tempo stuff. So I think that's a change for the better aesthetically. RJ Melendez is another guy that they like. A lot of hype coming out of him, coming out of the summer with him. He played for the Puerto Rican national team. He's a guy that in spurts last year, they just had, this is a team where, yes, there's a lot of new faces and a lot of unproven returners, but the dudes who were ahead of them were just so, solidified. Like Trent Frazier, there forever. Jacob Grandison was there for a long time. DeMonte Williams was there for a long time. They just had a formula that worked. And so these guys, it's not that they were sitting because they weren't good enough. They just had guys in front of them who had the experience, and you just got to wait your turn. That's the name of the game sometimes. I think, similar to Wisconsin, I think Illinois, I like them on a long-term curve. I think by the end of the year, it's a dangerous team. I don't know that they're a team that wins the conference or is 1, 2, 3 necessarily this year, just because there's so much uncertainty and it takes a while for teams to gel, and there's a lot of new pieces here. But I still like them as a tournament team. I still think they'll be strong, and I'm not trying to play them at the end of the year. Moving on, Purdue. Man, this team was so fun to watch last year. 29-8 overall, 14-6 in Big Ten play a year ago. Gone. Jaden Ivey to the draft. One of my favorite fits in the draft. Him and Cade playing together. Travion Williams, one of my favorite players to watch in college basketball. Amazing work out of the high post. Great passer. I believe he's on the Warriors now as an Exhibit 4 guy. Or
is he really? I thought he was with Boston. I know he played with Boston.
He got drafted. Yeah, he played with Boston in summer league. I think the Warriors picked him up. He's on a camp deal. We'll see what happens there. Sasha Stefanovic, the shooter, graduated. Eric Hunter graduated. Isaiah Thompson transferred to Florida Gulf Coast. In we have Camden Hyde, 4-star wing. Fletcher Lawyer, the Gatorade Player of the Year in Indiana last year, 4-star guard. Braden Smith's a 3-star guard, only 5'10". I always note when there's guys under 6 feet that get recruited to Division I programs, those dudes can ball. Wilberg, an unrated center from Sweden, and David Jenkins is a transfer from Utah. He's a guard. Back, we have Brandon Newman, who I think is going to be the lead guard on this team right now. Maybe him and Jenkins might split that. Mason Gillis, nice shooter. Caleb First, who was the Gatorade Player of the Year 2 or 3 years ago. They have the last 3 on their roster, which is impressive. Ethan Morton, Zach Eady, of course. Trey Kaufman-Wren was the Gatorade Player of the Year 2 years ago. He's like the 4th highest recruit in school history. I'm sure they have high expectations for him. Brian Waddell and Matt Frost. Purdue. Joel, give it to me.
Yeah, this is a team I caught a lot of last year.
Man, and I was so fun.
And I was really fond of Ivy and Travion especially. I thought Travion, you could make the argument that he was like a top 5 passer in the country, regardless of position. I mean, he was just so fun to watch. Eric Hunter was one of those guys that you could plug in as a starting guard. Didn't have to necessarily be on the ball so much and really create. But, I mean, he always made the right play. Like, even I remember watching the Big Ten tournament, and it was – I don't remember if it was the last game they played before elimination. But I remember – because I wrote about this game. Eric Hunter just made he's always in the right spots. And I remember Travion threw this crazy-ass pass. It was the craziest pass I've seen him throw. And hit Eric Hunter in the right spot. And it was always, like, just the connection. He just has that connection with guys. So I think he's going to lift that Butler team a lot. But Zach Edey, I was never his biggest fan. I'm interested to see what his load is this year and how he handles it. Because I always liked Travion more than Zach Edey, frankly. I always thought they were better with Travion on the floor than Edey.
I'm with you. Travion was a treat, man. He threw all kind of no-look passes. I think one of the best marks of a good passer is when dudes get hit in the face or they're not ready for those passes. Like you see things that the cutters don't see. He definitely had that. Like I think I agree with you that Travion was a better guy to have on the floor than Zach Edey most often. I wonder if Matt Painter wasn't looking ahead a year and saying Zach Edey needs this time because he's going to be our guy next year, and so. The question with Zach Edey, I mean, he played a season high 19 minutes per game last year. Part of that is because he's splitting time with Travion, who is so good. But the stamina has been a question for him. He's 7'4", it's understandable. But that needs to improve. It's big guys get in foul trouble a lot. He's got to stay out of foul trouble. I think they're really deep in the front court, but he's going to be an important player. His PER is like 40 because he's so big and rebounds so well and then scores. I think the highest, just for reference, the highest PR of all time in the NBA is like 35. So that gives you some, and being tall, and its PR is heavily skewed toward rebounding. It doesn't mean Zach Edey's like Wilt Chamberlain. It just means that he's really efficient because he's super tall and coordinated and plays around the rim a lot. I trust Matt Painter so much to put a good offense together. They got shooters on this team.
Yeah.
They got a dude who is going to command double teams that can just, like, it's automatic. You can't guard Zach Edey one-on-one in most situations.
Yeah.
And so as long as he can kick the ball out and get the swing started, I think this is going to be a really good offense again. The question is defense. It fell off pretty hard last year. It's been a team that it hovers in the top, 50, 30, 20 range of defense for the last few years of Painter's tenure. Last year it was 93rd in defensive efficiency, and there were times where, particularly on the perimeter, these guys were getting cooked. So that needs to improve. Purdue is another team like the other two that we've already discussed, Illinois, Wisconsin. Going to be a tournament team, going to be a tough out in the Big Ten. I'm not sure I would pick them to win the conference or finish 1, 2, 3. Next, Iowa. The bane of Nebraska basketball. Man, these people hate Iowa. They hate Iowa, Joel. 26-10 last year, Iowa. 12-8 in the Big Ten. Gone, Keegan Murray, kind of a big deal. Fourth pick in the draft to the Sacramento Kings. Not who I would have taken at 4, but he's a very good player. Jordan Bohannon.
He killed in the summer league, though.
He did.
Come
Jordan
on.
Bohannon is gone as well. There for a long time. Good shooter, good leader. Joe Toussaint transferred to West Virginia.
Good pickup.
DeSante Bowen, 3-star point guard. Josh Dix, 3-star shooting guard. And back, basically everyone else from last year, including Keegan's brother Chris, Patrick McCaffrey, Connor McCaffrey, Tony Perkins, who lit up Nebraska. Nebraska basically was like, all right, we're going to let Tony Perkins shoot a bunch of threes. We don't think he can make them. He made them in that second game. Peyton Sanford, who I think had taken a big jump. His brother also he's a 2023 guy, just committed to Iowa this offseason. Aaron Eulis, Philippe Rabracha, he's a transfer from South Dakota from last year, who's back as a super senior. Josh Ogundele, Riley Mulvey, and Luke Laqueta. I trust so much in Fran McCaffrey. This dude is going to put an elite offense on the floor. They're going to play fast because they have so many guys back. Like they understand what they need to do, and it's not gonna. The ceiling is much lower, right? Because you don't have a guy like Keegan Murray. I think Chris is going to make a jump. I think Peyton Sanford's going to make a jump, but you're not going to have a guy like Keegan Murray. The baton passing from Luka Garza to Keegan Murray, superstar to superstar, you just don't get that.
You don't see
You
that
just don't
often,
get that. You're not going to get that here, but McCaffrey's such a good offensive coach. The machine is whirring. This looks like a 20-win Iowa team to me. that makes the tournament. I don't know that it goes anywhere. I don't think they're going to win the Big Ten, but it's a solid team. Joel, what do you think?
Yeah, frankly, dude, Keegan Murray was one of the best college players I ever watched personally.
Another guy who just off the charts PER last year.
Yeah, and another guy who, like Johnny Davis, it was actually scary how almost aligned their jumps were. I mean, it was crazy.
Jaden Ivey, too. I mean, Jaden Ivey showed more than either of those guys did as a freshman, but all three of those took off last year.
From basically nothing to everything. I mean, his jump was crazy. And in terms of shot making, like, it felt oftentimes like if there were broken possessions for them, like, he could just go get you a bucket from anywhere on the floor, especially, like, his range was crazy. Like, you just don't find players like that. And I know people are hype about Chris's jump, but I just, like you said, I mean, it's just going to be hard to replicate.
You can't compare the two. Chris was a 9 or 10 point game scorer last year. That could become 12, 14, but you just don't replace 26 a game.
Yeah, and I do like the Corday return, though. I mean, I like McCaffrey. Tony Perkins made some good plays in that Big Ten tournament. I like the Corday return for sure.
Next up, Ohio State. 20-12 overall a year ago, 12-8 in the Big Ten. This is such a clustery conference last year. I would suspect it's going to be that way again. Gone, Malachi Branham to the draft. Guy who just second half of the year took off. E.J. Liddell also gone in the draft. Kyle Young graduated. Michi Johnson transferred to South Carolina. Jamari Wheeler, the Penn State transfer, I believe, is gone. I mean, I believe he was a Penn State transfer. He's definitely gone. Justin Ahrens is gone. Jimmy Sotos is gone. Cedric Russell is gone. Joey Brunk is gone. All those guys graduated. And we have Isaac Likely, the transfer from Oklahoma State. Sean McNeil, the shooter, transfer from West Virginia. Tanner Holden, the transfer from Wright State. And a bunch of young dudes. Yep. Roddy Gale Jr., top 50 guy, a guard. Bruce Sorton, top 50 guy, a guard. Those guys are actually ranked right next to each other in the recruiting rankings. Felix Opara, 4-star center, top 60, top 62 guy. Bryce Sensabaugh, top 70 guy. And Bowen Hardman, a 3-star guard from Cincinnati, I believe. And then they bring back Eugene Brown, kind of like a glue guy. I would compare him to like a Bruce Brown in the NBA. Justice Suing, who has dealt with some injury issues last year. We hope he's back in time. For this year, I think that's going to be the case. He was a guy who I think was a double-digit scorer on the team 2 years ago. That's key. Speaking of Zed Key, big man, steady, will have an outsized role this year just because they need experienced guys. He's a returning starter. Seth Towns entering year seven of college basketball. That is so much. And Kalen Etzler, a redshirt kid from last year who is, I think he's like a stretch big from what I can gather on the internet. He has not played a college game yet. It's a lot of young dudes, a lot of new faces. They lost their two primary drivers of offense in Malachi Branham and E.J. Liddell. That's a huge thing to overcome. E.J. Liddell was a fantastic defensive player. That's a huge thing to overcome. Yeah. It's going to be looking really different, and I think you need one of these, if not multiple of these young kids to pop for Ohio State. The talent's certainly there. But it's hard for me to envision what it looks like because I haven't seen most of these dudes play Division I college basketball before. Joel, what do you say? Same.
It's a lot to overcome, and I can imagine it'll be tough to kind of replicate. Like, I know Malachi Branham was a relatively high-ranked recruit, but I think he really shocked some people in terms of how good and poised he actually was. I mean, dude turned into a lottery pick. I mean, he was...
In 2 months. The first half of the season... Because I remember the game that he took off was at PBA. It was the first game back from winter break, which actually, quick aside, I had to drive from, well, I didn't have to. I decided to drive home for Christmas last year from Nebraska to Ohio because I thought I was going to trade my car in. And I got there, didn't like the price I was getting for my car, so decided to keep it. And then there was a snowstorm on the way back. And I'm driving on the freeway. I usually stop in Chicago midway on those trips because I got friends there. And I spun out on the freeway into a ditch. Like this, so you can't even see. I'm going like 40 on the freeway. Spun out into a ditch. Everything's good. Car's still fine. I'm fine. But after all that, I still had to cover Nebraska, Ohio State the next day, and went to overtime. And Malachi Branham hung 35, and that was his welcome to the world. And he just took off from there. Yeah. We were talking about something else. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, Branham's he turned into an incredible player, and I'm not sure I would bet on any of these freshmen making the kind of jump that he did. I mean, that was a hell of a lead guard to have. And then we talk about Liddell. That's a guy whose versatility on defense. I mean, being able to play big forward, like just being so good in his role. And even I think it'll benefit him in the league. I know he's out for the year, I think, because he tore his ACL. But I really like his fit at the next level. And he was just one of those players. He was in that top tier big list in college for a reason. And it's just hard to replace these guys. Now, I will say I haven't watched all their freshmen, but I did catch Felix last year when he played with Link. I mean, that whole Link team was talented. And what's crazy is they were so talented that he came off the bench. He was the sixth man behind Terrence Reed, who's going to Michigan. And he came in the game. I mean, this dude's frame is crazy. He came in the game. He's like pinning stuff on the glass. And like this dude was coming off the bench. They were crazy talented. I like him as an athletic specimen. But yeah, I don't know how easy it'll be to replace what they lost.
Yeah, he'll be able to learn behind Zed Key. That's key. But like you said, it's just not easy to be a guy of true freshman in the Big Ten and make the kind of impact that Malachi made last year right away. Took him some time. And whoever it ends up being, whoever they choose to be the guy, I think you could see if Sewing's healthy, four starters and Brown, Key, Towns, and Sewing, whoever they choose to be that other guy, and whoever's going to be those first few guys. You got McNeil and likely in there. So whoever this freshman class stands out, you got to be patient with them. You probably got to be patient with this Ohio State team. There's some angst among that fan base about it seems like Holtman's. I don't think he's been to the Sweet 16 yet. Just be patient. Yeah. He's putting together some crazy recruiting classes. It's going to come.
And for what it's worth, I think they'll still hang around as a top 40-ish team. Yeah. But it's definitely going to get nastier than it was last year. It's going to get nasty.
Take some time. To gel a group like that. Rutgers is next. They were my favorite team last year. It made no sense every time they won a game, but they just kept winning. Gone. Two tough guys to replace. Ron Harper Jr. Yep. I don't know where he is in the league, but I know he left the league. Geo Baker is gone as well. Jaden Jones entered the draft. I don't know why he did that, to be honest with you. And Ralph Gonzalez-Agui is gone as well. And we have Cam Spencer, a transfer from Loyola, Maryland, who scored about 20 a game there. I'm always a little bit skeptical about the mid-major guys replicating their production and efficiency at this level, but he's someone that they hope helps in the scoring department. Antonio Chol, 3-star power forward. Derek Simpson, 3-star point guard, and Antoine Woolfolk, 3-star power forward. And back we have Paul Mulcahy, who was the Big Ten's second leading assist man last year. Andre Hyatt, Dean Reber, Caleb McConnell, the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year a year ago. Clifford Omoruye, love him as a rim protecting center. Mwat Mag, Jalen Miller, and Oscar Palmquist. This team I could see taking a step back. I just don't know. I don't know how they're going to replace the scoring that they got from Ron Harper Jr. and Geo Baker last year. They're still going to make it hard on teams to score. Caleb McConnell is a great defensive player. Clifford Omoruye is a one-man deterrent at the rim. Paul Mulcahy plays really hard, fills all the gaps. Has really good vision and can grease the wheels for the offense. He can get things started. I just don't know who's finishing possessions. You got Omoruye as a lob threat. That's great. Maybe he takes a jump as a post guy. But they need somebody, whether it's Cam Spencer, Caleb McConnell, Paul Mulcahy, to really take command as a lead scorer. I don't know that I trust those guys to do so at a level and at a volume and at an efficiency that can fill the hole that they have lost. So they're still going to play really hard, but I don't know if this is a team that makes the tournament again. They've made it 2 straight years. Joel, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll echo what you said. And just to be frank, I can't see a first and second option on this team like Ron Harper Jr. and Geo Baker that will win as many games. It's just that simple.
No more needs to be said there. But we still love you, Rutgers. And Rutgers, penciling them winning a dumb game on someone else's home court that they shouldn't win. Michigan State, 23-13 last year, 11-9 in Big Ten play. Max Christie is on the Lakers now. Gabe Brown is gone as well. He was awesome last year. Great athlete. Played really good defense, good shooter.
Yeah.
In Jackson Cole, a 4-star power forward, number 58 player in the country in the 2022 class. Trey Holloman, a 4-star point guard, the number 78 player in the 2022 class. And Carson Cooper, a center from IMG Academy, unrated by the recruiting services, considered as a sleeper, which is what they call all of the unrated kids. And not that Carson Cooper can't play. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying every unrated kid ever has been considered a sleeper. Guys they have back: A.J. Hoiberg, Tyson Walker, Malik Hall, Marcus Bingham.
A lot of that team.
A lot of the team.
Yeah.
You know, basically everyone besides Max Christie and Gabe Brown. 10 dudes back. Julius Marble II, Jaden Akins, Matty Sissoko, Pierre Brooks, Joey Hauser. Keon Coleman plays football, but he has always considered himself more of a basketball player. I don't know what's going on with that situation. But he played last year, and I think he's going to play again this year. I like this team. I just implicitly trust Izzo to get the most out of a group like this that has a lot of experienced guys. I think Malik Hall is ready to take a big jump. Last year they were trying to get Max Christie involved. Max Christie didn't have a great freshman year. He didn't shoot it very well. They kept trying to get him involved. They wanted to get him his rhythm. Gabe Brown surprised a lot of people and ended up leading the team in scoring. I think Malik Hall was probably the most naturally talented guy out there and what should have been like the number one option. Now the kitchen is clear. It's his show to run if he wants it. A.J. Hoiberg and Tyson Walker were very low turnover guys last year. They were inconsistent guys, but something about Izzo, his teams are always low turnovers, so they're going to take care of the ball. Marcus Bingham's a nice player. He's got a good jumper from 15 to 20 feet, lengthy, tough to score over at the rim. I think this is a sleeper team that could win the conference. Joel, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know about win the conference, but they'll definitely hanging around at top 30-ish range, I think, in the country. I mean, they got a good guard court. They basically bring back everybody, like we said. Good backcourt to rely on, and Hoiberg and Tyson Walker. Good big rotation. And Marcus Bingham, I like what I saw from Marcus Bingham last year. And Julius Marble was just solid. And felt like
Jackson Kohler.
Jackson Kohler, I caught him last year, too, at the same tournament I caught Link. I think they actually played against each other. Their point guard ended up at Ole Miss. But I remember Jackson Kohler, watching him. He was pretty skilled. He was stretching the floor. I'm watching him. I'm like, yo, where is he going? And I was at Michigan State. I'm like, yo, like they got something good going over there in the front court. So they'll definitely still be in the mix, I think. But yeah, I don't know if I'm as high on them as you are.
I just think I'm just looking around. I'm looking for someone to jump out at me.
Yeah.
We'll get to them. Well, I think these next few teams we're going to talk a little bit more about the picture at the top here, but. Yeah, I really like this team. Jackson Kohler, freshman who can shoot the ball. Thumbs up. Those guys make quick impacts.
But I thought
go ahead.
Freshmen don't make impacts, though. I thought, Jimmy.
If you can shoot, that's one very easily transferable skill.
Yeah, for sure.
Putting stuff like asking guys to run an offense as freshmen, that's a freaking lot, man. Michigan, 19-15 a year ago, 11-9 overall. Or I'm sorry, 11-9 in the Big Ten. Gone Caleb Houston and Moussa Diabate. Both went to the draft. Caleb Houston ended up being a late first-round pick. Was he late first-round or early second-round pick by Orlando?
He was taken 32, I think.
Yeah, okay. So early second-round pick. Moussa Diabate, drafted in the second round. I guess we're just one and done. And if you want to be a one and done, you're one and done no matter what now? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I don't know. I would stay. I'm trying to get my guarantee, get more guarantees. Get longer deals.
We talking about Caleb?
I'm just talking in general. Like Caleb Houston did this. Moussa Diabate did this. Bryce McGowan's did this. Guys are just hard set on being a one and done guy. And it's like if you're not a first round pick, why?
Yeah,
why would you do that?
I was on the fence with Diabate leaving, but I could see in terms of long term.
I think both of them would be better pros than they were in college, to be clear. But
I think long-term projection, I see why Diabate did it. I mean, he just has that frame and mobility to where you're like, okay, let's test out the pro waters. It's time to probably stop playing in college now. They would have been way better with him. But what can you do? And then Caleb Houston this is a guy that probably had a similar year to Max Christie almost. Probably better. I think he had more moments.
But better too.
Yeah, but this is a guy that didn't shoot what people thought he would. I mean, this was a guy that he's a 6'8" sharpshooter. And he had his moments, but, dude, it was mostly disappointing. And so I was surprised when he left. But, I mean, frankly, nothing really keeps these dudes in college anymore. If you came in projected, I think the worst case I saw was, Caleb Love. Caleb Love came in to UNC as, a top 10 projected pick. And then he fell off so bad where it was okay, you can't leave. You got to be here. Yeah. But I don't think outside of that case, I haven't seen many cases where something happened so bad at least in these kids' minds, where it's like, okay, they can't leave.
I just think you see guys like Jaden Ivey, Johnny Davis, and Keon Murray making.
But Jaden Ivey wasn't nearly as highly ranked.
Right. It's not like he was, but like, could Jaden Ivey? Musa Diabate went in the 40s, right? Could Jaden Ivey have gone in the 40s a year ago?
Sure.
Shrug. I don't know. I'm just asking, but I don't know. Every college coach says that the biggest jump that you make as a player is between your freshman and sophomore years. I just think that it shouldn't be automatic every time. I think, go get your money. I understand why it's happening.
Yeah.
But I think for your development as a player, I'm not sure it's always the best thing. Also gone Frankie Collins, who transferred to Arizona State. He was their backup point guard last year, and they had, when he got there, big plans for him. He was a highly rated recruit. Eli Brooks was the best shooter on this team last year. Brandon Johns gone. Zeb Jackson transferred to VCU. Adrian Nunez and Jerron Faulds also graduated in. Jalen Llewellyn, it's a guess. I think I did a pretty good job there on that last name. Transfer from Princeton. Juwan Howard has 3 years gone to the portal and come back with a mid-major guard. Terrace Reed, aforementioned, who played against Link Academy when Joel was in attendance, 4-star center, number 35 player in the class. Jet Howard, the son of Jawan, 4-star small forward, number 42 in the class. Doug McDaniel, DUG. I like that spelling of Doug. Sure. 4-star point guard, number 81 player in the class. And Greg with 2 Gs, 4-star power forward. And we got Joey Baker.
Okay, first,
from Duke.
Before we keep talking about rankings, what site are you?
247's composite is what I.
Sure. Okay.
And
That's
what?
Fair.
You're not.
No,
you're
no.
not
I'm not. I don't have a preference for any site. I usually use ESPN though.
Okay.
I should probably stop, but I like when we go through.
I just use the composite because 247. It's not just 247's information.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. I just don't want to confuse the listeners when I get to, like, if I say someone was 81st in the country, like that's another site.
These are good points. Maybe that's something that I should have mentioned off the top. I'm still getting my host shoes, still wearing them in.
By the way, I do like some of the freshmen Michigan brought in. I think Terrace Reed is going to be one of those solid centers that you see probably at, in those top few tiers of college basketball in a year or two. And Jet Howard is a guy I thought, even though he is a freshman, like Jimmy says, freshmen don't often contribute. But
I'm not saying they don't contribute at all. It's just hard to expect them to be like capital G guys all the time.
But I will say this about Jet Howard. I think his game is so low maintenance. Like from what I've seen, he's a guy very intentional with his handle. 1 dribble gets to his spots, 2 dribble gets to the rim, doesn't need the ball. Like I like players like that, very pluggable. I think he'll do just fine, more than fine at Michigan, frankly.
Excellent. That bodes well because they need these freshmen to pop. Back Hunter Dickinson, arguably the best player in the conference. You're probably arguing about him. Trace Jackson Davis and Zach Edey in that range. Kobe Buffkin, Terrence Williams
him,
the second.
by the way.
You got Hunter?
Yeah.
Okay. He started shooting threes last year, did okay. Jace Howard, the other Howard, both Howard kids on this team. Isaiah Barnes, Yusuf Kayat, and Will Shedder. Hunter Dickinson puts you in the conversation. When you have a guy like that, it's one of the best players in the conference, another dude that you have to double team and make defenses overcommit to. So I'm in from that perspective. The trouble with Hunter Dickinson with Michigan last year, didn't have enough floor spacers around him. They didn't shoot threes well enough. Their offense still rated out pretty well efficiency-wise, but you could just feel it sometimes that, teams weren't as afraid to double them. The talent is there, though. I think they have a chance to. It's really hard for me to put a finger on this team right now, but they've definitely got a chance to compete for the conference title. I think you could see something. You're going to have to see some of these freshman kids take off, and Hunter Dickinson is going to punish everyone in his path.
Yep.
That dude's just a
monster.
So skilled, so skilled. Next up, how far are we? We got Indiana left, Maryland left. Okay, we're getting there. Indiana, probably the favorites in the Big Ten this year. 21-14. I think it's the truth.
What?
I think they're the favorites.
No, I was just looking at the rest of this list of Big Ten teams.
It's long. Oh yeah.
No.
After this, it's gonna get a little rough.
It gets ugly.
It's gonna get a little rough. Indiana is 21-14 last year, 9-11 in the Big Ten, 9-11 in the Big Ten. They lost Rob Finney to Cincinnati, Michael Durr to UCF, Parker Stewart, the best shooter on the team, to UT Martin, Christian Lander, a former 5-star guard, is at Western Kentucky.
They didn't treat him right, but
fair. In Jalen Hood-Schifino, 5-star guard, number 23 in his class.
Really good.
Malik Reneau, 4-star power forward, number 29 in the class. Caleb Banks, 4-star power forward, number 89 in the class. CJ Gunn, incredible name, 3-star shooting guard. Like, if your last name is Gunn and you're a shooter, like,
he's pretty good too.
What more do you want?
I watched him drop 40 in Indy when I was at the Star. Yeah.
What more do you want?
Yeah.
And of course, Trace Jackson Davis is back. Basically, most of the rotation is back from last year. Trace Jackson Davis, Xavier Johnson, Jordan Geronimo, Race Thompson, Tamar Bates, Trey Galloway, Miller Kopp, and Anthony Leal, all back. They're going to be the Big Ten favorites. Why would they win the title? Joel, why wouldn't they?
I think you have to see a jump. I think you have to see a jump from, as crazy as it sounds, Trace Jackson Davis. I know there are rumblings about him possibly extending his range. Ooh, I think that has
a big man might shoot threes in the offseason.
That has to happen
Put it on your bingo card.
That has to happen if they want to win big.
Or they have to just not play him and Race Thompson together.
I mean,
I don't think Mike Woodson's going to do that, but that's how they have a spacing problem. Trace Jackson Davis gets doubled a lot.
Yeah.
So he either needs to improve significantly as a passer, which I think he did last year.
Even with that lineup, playing them side by side, they hit a certain stride, I thought, at the end of last year. They had fans excited. They gave them something to hold on to. I think you add the freshman there. Because this is the thing. X Johnson is a pretty solid lead guard. I think
he shot a career high 38% from three last year.
I think he'd start on a lot of teams, but I think it just behind him it was like, I don't know, there wasn't really a ton of pop, a ton of flash talent, like really the stuff that these teams have, like a Michigan has in their freshmen and their underclassmen.
They had Christian Lander, 5-star kid,
but they didn't really play him like that. Like they
played Finney over him.
So I think Hood-Schifino, I think people are going to be really excited about him. I mean, this is a dude at Montverde. I remember they were debating, and this was Ryan Nembhard was a year older than him, and they were like, "Ooh, should we start Jalen Hood-Schifino?" And he was a junior. Like this dude is like really talented, and I've seen some of the clips from their preseason stuff, and their red and white games, whatever that's worth. He's real flashy. He's just nice. He's just advanced. And then you talk about the rest of the core. They return. I know they lost Parker Stewart, who's a great shooter, but they're still bringing back Tamar Bates, who looks like an improved shooter. Trey Galloway can shoot.
Tamar Bates had moments as a shooter last year, too.
Miller Kopp can shoot.
He can.
They got a lot of their core. So I think there's stuff to be excited about. I still think they're like a top 3, 4-ish team if they leave off from where they were last year.
That's interesting because when Joe Lunardi...
Not in the country.
Okay.
I mean
in the Big Ten. I mean, this is by far the best combination of talent and experience in the conference. This team on paper should win the conference, in my opinion.
I probably agree with you.
It's just has not worked out that way. They had a lot of these guys last year. There were some. I think they were top 5 or 6 in the preseason poll last year. They kind of faltered. They played good defense. They didn't score well enough.
They were just mid, but they hit their stride at the end of the year, which is what counts.
I'm always wary of thinking that's going to carry over into next season. I think this talent influx can help them a good deal.
Yeah.
Just to give everyone a quick check on where the national conversation thinks Indiana is at.
They're like top 15.
This is Joe Lunardi did a bracketology thing for the way too early 2023, whatever, last week, 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. Time is fickle. And this was the highest seed in the Big Ten. I believe they were 4 seed. So this is a very talented team. They should be much better. Real quick, Joel and I were talking before the podcast because he said, I think Trace Jackson Davis might shoot more threes this year. I'm just like, yeah, that's literally what every coach is saying about every big man in the country.
Well, they're saying that about Kalkbrenner too, but I believe it.
Yeah, I don't. They're saying about Derek Walker. Guess how many threes Derek Walker's going to shoot this year? Not many. Trace Jackson Davis will make fewer than 5 3-pointers this year. That's where I'm setting the bar. Previously, he has shot 3 in his entire career.
What is the difference in shooting them and not making them? Mm-hmm. And
Okay, let's put an attempt. What's an attempt number you feel comfortable that he'll shoot this year over the course of a regular season?
15.
15?
Yeah.
But does that count as him extending his range?
Man,
15 threes.
What was it? A combined 0 attempts to his first year? That's something.
For 0 attempts his first 2 years, 3 last year. Likely all of them at the end of the clock or maybe late heaves. Let's use
15 is worth something. It's notable.
Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna use Hunter Dickinson as a comparison. Why? He didn't shoot a ton last year. Hunter Dickinson actually extended his range last year.
Yeah.
Actually shot 3-pointers and shot 33%, 32.8% on 2 attempts per game. Can Trace Jackson
could do that. We're talking about the best team in the Big Ten.
Is Trace Jackson going to take that many threes? 2 a game would be about 60-ish.
Well, I don't know. I don't cover that team, so I can't tell. Okay. I don't know the noise around.
Sounds like a cop-out to me.
Well, I don't know how much. I don't know how hard Trace Jackson is working, or if that's even.
He was talking bigger before we started recording. That's fine.
Man, all I said was I heard rumblings that he's trying to shoot the ball better.
Oh, Run away.
Gosh. All right,
Run
man.
away. Tail between your legs. All right. Next up on the list is Northwestern.
Oh, brother, this is where it gets ugly.
This is not a great situation.
Yeah.
15-16 a year ago somehow. 7-13 in the conference. Gone is Pete Nance, who is so far, he was so much their best player.
Yeah.
He did everything. He was their best passer. He was their best, among their best rebounders. I think he led them in rebounding, and he was their best scorer. He transferred to North Carolina.
Now
that shows you how good he is.
He's going to be a great starter for the best team in the country.
He's going to play a lot at North Carolina. Ryan Young, sort of like a sixth man, like he had a nice post game, man. Like straight out of 1994. Great post game. He ended up at Duke. Ryan Greer has graduated. Elijah Williams graduated. Casey Simmons transferred to Yale. Shout out Casey Simmons. That's a nice transcript move for you. In Titus Verhaven, I'm taking a stab at that last name. A transfer from UTEP. 3-star recruits Luke Hunger, a power forward, and Nick Martinelli, another forward, and Blake Smith, an unrated guard from Blue Pell, Pennsylvania. A sleeper, Blake Smith. And back, I mean, they do bring a lot of rotation guys back. Boo Buie, who absolutely lit Nebraska on fire at PBA last year. They had Joel. Let me set the stage for you.
Okay.
Nebraska brought back all of the program, a lot of the program's best player in school history. It's like a alumni. Let's get together. Thing, yeah. We think we're going to beat Northwestern, so let's make it a celebration. Northwestern ran these dudes off the court, beat them. It was 30+ at one point, and Boo Buie just kept hitting pull-up threes. Nebraska couldn't figure out how to guard the. They weren't doing much special. They were just setting screens for this dude up top, and he kept hitting threes. Chase Audige needs to work on his jumper, but I like some of his game. Ty Berry's a good shooter. Robbie Barron, a backup front court guy. Julian Roper, a freshman who showed some promising flashes last year. Brooks Barnheiser, Matthew Nicholson, Roy Dixon. It's not going to be a good team. It's not going to be a good team.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add. This is probably not a team I'm going to be watching this year. So
Northwestern, for the Nebraska fans out there, this is a team you can be better than. This is a team you can be better than, legitimately.
This is the bar.
Even though they have the in-house experience, they bring back more than Nebraska does for sure in terms of experience. But this team's not very good. They lost their two of their best offensive creators. I'll throw Boo Buie is probably better at scoring and creating than Ryan Young. But I'm not sure. It's been 5 years since Chris Collins made that tournament run. Northwestern made there's a documentary on Big Ten Network that runs every now and again about their tournament run. And there was a Northwestern graduate who unironically said in that documentary, Duke was a small school before. Why can't we be Duke? That takes not aging very well. Takes not aging very well. 5 straight losing seasons. I would bet a ton of money on a 6th. And Chris Collins has 3 years left on his deal. I don't like talking about other people's jobs, man, but his is in jeopardy. Next up, Maryland. 15-17 a year ago. It was a messy year. Coach stepped down middle of the year. That's always tough. 7-13 in the conference. Had talent. Fats Russell, gone. Eric Ayala, gone. Qudus Wahab transferred to Georgetown. Xavier Green, gone. Simon Wright, gone. Marcus Dockery transferred to Howard. In Donald Carey, a transfer from Georgetown. Jameer Young, a transfer from Charlotte, who filled it up last year. And Patrick Emelian, a transfer from St. Francis. And Jahari Long followed Kevin Willard, the new coach from Seton Hall. They also got Ike Cornish, a 4-star guard, top 100 player. Noah Batchelor, 3-star small forward, and Calum Swanton-Roger, a freshman from Canada. Retained actually a nice little piece of the core from last year, given that it's a new coach. Dante Scott, double-digit scorer from a year ago. Julian Reese, former 4-star kid who showed some interesting flashes, has some face-up game, bouncy, can run the floor. Ian Martinez, sort of a spark plug guy off the bench. Hakeem Hart, a guard who started last year. Pavlo Zuba, and Arnaud Ravaz. New coach. You gotta give Kevin Willard some grace. He's got a nice recruiting base. Yeah. Maryland is always, or that DMV area is always a nice base for talent.
Definitely.
You gotta give him 2-3 years.
Yeah.
I don't know what to expect.
From what I've seen, I think I've seen a couple commitments since then that are, relatively promising. So I'm not going to talk bad on them this year. For what it's worth, I think college basketball is better when Maryland is decent. For sure. So I'll give them some grace for sure.
Having a new coach, my friends and I have always said that the best life phase that you can be is in school, because if you're at a family gathering and someone asks how you're doing and you say you're in school, there are 0 follow-up questions. They just assume, in school, like you're learning, you're building towards something, you're having fun, like your life's just automatically fine. They're not asking follow-up questions. You're already automatically good. New coach, good vibes. No more questions.
No doubt.
Give them time to grow.
Yeah.
Penn State had a new coach last year, Micah Shrewsbury. Year 2, by Penn State standards, this is a decent situation. Gone are Sam Sessoms, John Harrar, Greg Lee, Jaheim Cornwall, great name, Jelani White, another great name, and Giovanni Scott. In Michael Henn, a transfer from Denver, Cameron Winter, a transfer from Drexel, Andre Funk, a transfer from Bucknell. Keba Nije is a 4-star center. I believe he is the second highest recruit in Penn State history. That's exciting. Jamil Brown, 3-star guard. Kanye Chiari, 3-star point guard. Evan Mahaffey, 3-star forward. And Demetrius Liley is a 3-star center. And back are Jalen Pickett, Seth Lundy, Miles Dredd, a trio of seniors who are pretty good. Dalian Johnson and Caleb Dorsey, juniors who played bit roles last year, probably going to take a jump up this year. This team's not going to compete for the Big Ten title. I do think they can be pesty. They played good defense for the most part last year. They played physical. Shrewsbury's a Stevens descendant, so that when you get that sort of background, that's going to be encouraging. And again, this is the best recruiting class that they've had since 2016. That's great. Now build on it. Go beat a few teams that you're not supposed to beat, and maybe 2 years from now, you can really start to put something together. You really started to put something together. Joel had to smack the light on, smack the light awake for us.
Nobody's in here with us.
No one's in here. We've been left to our own devices. That's dangerous. Penn State thoughts, Joel?
Not many. This is a team I don't really think about often, but I'm glad they got this base back of Jalen Pickett and Miles Dredd. I really wish John Harrar wasn't as old as he was. I liked watching him last year, but
dude's strong.
Yeah,
Nebraska made him cry on his senior night by hitting a bunch of threes and beating him. Tough. He was crying, but the fans enjoyed it.
Didn't know that.
Speaking of the Nebraska Cornhuskers, the Huskers,
woohoo,
the fighting Hoibergs.
Yeah,
10-22 a year ago. Ouch. Best record of the Hoiberg tenure. 4-16 in conference. 3 of them came in the last week. What a whirlwind it was. Gone, Bryce McGowan's, Trey McGowan's. Both went to the draft. I don't know why Trey left, but he did. Lat Mayan playing in Australia now. Awesome. Kobe Webster playing overseas. Alonzo Verge playing overseas. Eduardo Andre transferred to Fresno State. I like him still. I like him I just like his tools. He moves well. Keon Edwards transferred to Wisconsin Milwaukee. He's a former 4-star guy. I don't know what happened. They played him last year, and he just didn't do much. He was putting up those Tony Snell stat lines. He was just running out there. Trevor Lakes, no disrespect, Keon, but you know what happened. Trevor Lakes, a transfer, went back to Southern Indiana. That's a good fit for him. Incoming, you guys know, Sam Griesel, the hometown kid from Lincoln, North Dakota State. Emmanuel Bandamel, transfer from SMU. Juwan Gary, the transfer from Alabama. Ramel Lloyd from Sierra Canyon, 4-star guard. Jamarcus Lawrence from Roselle Catholic, played high school basketball with C.J. Wilcher. 3-star guard, dead-eye shooter. Blaze Keita, number 1 JUCO center in the country. He is a mean presence down there. He's going to hurt people. And back, C.J. Wilcher, the shooter. Derek Walker, still somehow playing college basketball. 6 years for Derek, I believe. Keisei Tominaga, a shooter in theory. We've seen it when he plays for Japan. We saw it once against a mid-major school that I can't remember last year. Wilhelm Breidenbach, highly, highly rated recruit, really skilled big man, coming off an ACL injury. We'll see. Quarren McPherson, sounds like he was going to, from what I'm hearing, sounded like he was going to be in the rotation this year. He's out for the year with a knee injury. That's tough. We learned that earlier this week. Oleg Koyenets, I'm thinking another redshirt year for my man Oleg. And Denham Dawson, to be determined. I know they like him as an athlete. I know they like him as a defensive guy. His skills on the offensive side need to improve a little bit. You guys know my takes on Nebraska. We've been talking about it all summer. They're going to need some help from Fred scoring the ball. Good news, that's what Fred does. One of the best offensive coaches schematically in basketball. That's what literally every coach who walks through the PBA doors, they will make it a point to say during their press conference after beating Fred by 10 to 15 to 20 points, he's a great offensive coach. No disrespect, Fred. That's what happens. They'll say he's a great offensive coach. You can watch it. The guy drawn up plays out after timeouts. He's great. The stuff they run is great. They're going to need every bit of his brain to score the ball this year. Defensively, they're going to be a lot better. Manuel Bannemal can straight up guard dudes, man. He can straight up guard dudes. Juwan Gary can straight up guard dudes.
Yeah, I like Juwan Gary.
Sam Griesel's, I wouldn't be asking him to guard ball handlers, but as a wing guy, he's big.
He got good size.
He can stay in front of guys and make it harder for them to get to the rim. The rim protection is not really there, but if you got, if Bannemal can cut off the head of the snake, so to speak, keep guys out of the paint from that perspective, I see that's the hope for this team. Be a lot better on defense, score a lot off of misses, run off of misses, and do enough in the half court. Maybe find someone who can draw some fouls. That's the idea. I think this is a team that, look at some of the teams we're talking about. Northwestern's not going to be very good. Penn State's not going to be very good. Minnesota's not going to be very good. Maryland's rebuilding the program. These are teams that you can be ahead of in the Big Ten. Those are teams that you can get. You can beat those teams. And then the other thing is I don't think that there's too many teams that are going to overwhelm Nebraska with talent. You play good enough defense, you hang around, you execute well late, you steal a few games. I think a great outcome for this team would be 500, hover around 500, and feel good about yourself. Bring the fans back in. By the end of last year, the arena was empty at the end of games, and that was really tough to see. It's just a sad environment. Felt like I was watching YMCA games sometimes. You could hear the shoes squeaking by the end, Joel. It was bad. Bring the energy back. Build some momentum for next year. Some viable physical, something you can see, something that guys can point to and say, okay, I'm excited about next year, and not just because of a number next to a guy's name on a recruiting list. Show me something. I think that's the standard. I don't think they have to win a ton of games for Fred to keep his job. Just make it look better. Don't lose to Rutgers by 30 on the road. That's embarrassing. You can't get embarrassed. Don't invite all your legends to alumni weekend and get blown out. Don't do that. If you do that, I think Fred keeps his job. Just be competitive. Just hover around 500. Joel?
For what it's worth, I think they probably shape up better against the bottom of this conference this time around. Maryland is not great. Penn State, I like to think, is worse. Minnesota is worse. So if that's the standard, Northwestern is worse.
Bad, yeah.
So I think if you are confidently ahead of these teams and maybe even shock a few people by, leapfrogging another team, I think that would be a good year for this team at this rate.
One more thing I'll mention about Nebraska. I had coffee with Kemp Pavelka yesterday for like 2 hours in Starbucks. We were just talking basketball and Nebraska. And one thing that I brought up to him is this is an old team. And as we've been talking about, a lot of these teams are counting on young guys across the league. And I think Fred saw that, and I think it's a little bit of a zag on his part. He's like, all right, I need to, if I'm going to beat some teams that I'm not supposed to beat, experience is one way to do that. Sam Griesel, grad transfer. Emmanuel Bandamel, same thing. Juwan Gary, same thing. Derek Walker, been around forever. C.J. Wilshire's only sophomore. It's his third year in the program. Old teams can beat young teams if you hang around long enough. It's possible. All right, let's cap it off. Minnesota. Not good.
Yeah.
Not good. They weren't good last year. Ben Johnson was able to establish an identity. This is a team that rebounded pretty well. It's a team that didn't that defended, that played hard. I'll say they played hard. And they found some guys in the transfer portal who could score well enough to keep them afloat in certain moments. Those guys are gone now, by the way. Guys like Peyton Willis graduated. Guys like Jamison Battle's still there. Eric Curry's gone. Elijah Stevens is gone. Sean Sutherland's gone. Luke Lowe's gone. Charlie Daniels gone. Danny Ogale and Abdoulaye Thiam is still in the portal. I hope he finds somewhere soon. And Dawson Garcia transfers from North Carolina. Weird situation on his third school in 3 years. Played at Marquette. Played at North Carolina. Actually played. Put up pretty decent numbers at both of those spots. In the portal again. So interesting from a talent perspective. Also interesting from a what's going on there perspective. Talon Cooper, transfer from Morehead State. Taurus Samuels, a transfer from Dartmouth, who had only 19 turnovers all year last year. I don't think they were asking him to do everything, but that's still not very many for as many minutes as he played. Caden Betts, a reclassified 3-star in some recruiting services, 4-star on 3, and a guy who visited Nebraska, and I think they were kind of excited about for a while, but he visited Minnesota, and it snowballed pretty quickly from there. Pharrell Payne, 3-star forward. Jaden Henley, 3-star forward. Josh Ola Joseph, 3-star forward. Braden Carrington, 3-star shooting guard. I'm saying a lot of freshmen, I'm saying a lot. They brought in 5. They needed to. They needed to replenish the cupboard. It's a long leash, or at least it should be, for Ben Johnson. Back Jamison Battle, 17.6 points per game last year. Dude can play. Trayton Thompson, Will Ramberg, Isaiah Inan, Jackson Purcell, and Parker Fox also back. Minnesota's probably going to be toward the bottom of the Big Ten again. Be more competitive toward the back half. They really the wagon kind of fell off at the end for them last year. So they've got more talent. That's good. Build tangible momentum. Get more guys on the recruiting trail. That sort of thing. I don't have a ton to say about them. I don't think they're going to be very good, but I don't think that's a problem necessarily because they're still so new.
Yeah, I think it's good that Dawson Garcia is from Minnesota because they were able to land him, but I can't say much good about them past that.
Quick, what's the word? Interlude before we get to the Big East. Joel, who's ESTG? He's performing at Nebraska's opening night event.
I did see that.
He's performing at Nebraska's opening night event. It was announced last week while I was on the treadmill at the Y, and Sam immediately texted me, our boss, Sam McEwen. He said, "Who's ESTG?" I was like, "Brother, I don't know. This is one of the first guys that's been announced at one of these types of events. I just have no idea who this is. So I'm giving you this opportunity, 2-3 minutes, whatever. Explain to me who he is. Call me old. Do whatever you want to do."
You know, it's interesting because from what I understand, one, he's like one of those, from the songs I've heard, I don't listen to him too much, but from the songs I've heard, he's like that type of, it's almost like kind of Detroit-ish sound mixed with like some Southern. I don't know how to describe it. I got a few songs of his saved in my phone. Like, this is a dude I think appeals to like the age range of like high schoolers to like in your 20s, but like I don't know. It's more like, I don't want to call him underground. I feel like he's transcending past underground. He signed to Yo Gotti, I think. But he's a good. I think he makes good songs. He's a good song maker, and he's not a bad rapper either. I think if you're into,
what are we talking like? Are we talking a trap guy? Are we using a lot of auto tune?
More or less, no auto tune.
Okay.
More or less, but there's like, you can't call him a mumble rapper because he's like actually.
So he's not a little whatever, as J. Cole once said.
No, but he's like, I don't know. He's just talking his shit on the song. Like I couldn't tell you. He's not anything unique. Okay. But he is good at what he does.
That's what you got to look forward to, kid. I just noticed we've been recording for an hour. Do you want to, Joel? I'm leaving this up to you. Do you want to spare people the pain of a 2-hour podcast and do the Big East next week? I think we should. Yeah. We're going to do that. We'll end on the ESTG note. That's the Big Ten. We introduced the Big Ten to you. We'll circle back again. All the opinions expressed here can be reprised over the next 8 weeks. They will be reprised over the next 8 weeks. I'll do more research. I'll look into it more. And we're going to do the Big East. because I don't want to rush through the Big East. I didn't know how long these were going to take. Maybe I should have put a timer on us. But even just reading names takes a very long time because again, there is so much movement. So that's the Big Ten offseason roster overhaul. We're going to do the Big East next week. We're going to come back. We're going to hit the whiteboard. We'll have a better introduction. I won't be talking about Brian Windhorst anymore.
I like Brian Windhorst, but we can't keep naming him when we start the podcast, bro.
I mean, I think he would consider it flattering.
A compliment.
I don't know. That's Joel.
If Brian Windhorst ever hears this and he considers that a compliment, come reach out to us. Come talk to us.
Come on the pod. Enlighten us. Teach us some things. That's Joel. I'm Jimmy. We'll talk to you next week.